Hi, I'm Valerie Crow with Cobb and Douglas Public Health. Welcome to Spotlight on Public Health. We have a great show lined up today. First, we are going to talk one-on-one with the new District Health Director of Cobb and Douglas Public Health, and then later in the show, we will talk about asthma management. My first guest is Dr. Janet Memark, and as I mentioned earlier, she is the new Health Director of Cobb and Douglas Public Health. Dr. Memark, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Valerie, for having me.
Dr. Memark, let's start off by talking about your new role. Why were you interested in the District Health Director position?
So that's a great question. So, it wasn't one of those things where I had my whole career destined to head in this direction, but it seems that life has kind of taken me that way. I started off getting a master's in public health when I was at the University of Miami. And I actually did it before medical school at that time. So I didn't have any idea that, almost 2 decades later I'd end up doing solely public health. So, when you practice medicine and, as a physician, I started off doing underserved and homeless medicine, and that was my interest. And, I started off just kind of doing one-on-one medicine and learning a lot about that, and then, going on to teaching and then running some clinics in my last position. And you kind of learn as you go along, and each step of the way you learn as, when you do individual medicine, and then what affects those individuals, and then, what parts of the, healthcare system affects that part of the system, and you keep just kind of backing up. And I think eventually I came to public health because I realized if you're going to make the biggest impact that you possibly can on people's health, it's going to be in public health. And so I was very fortunate to run across the Cobb and Douglas Public Health department when I was working with them in my previous job, and then the last director retired, and so I got really lucky to be here, and I feel very fortunate to be with Cobb Douglas.
Okay, great. And you kind of touched on this, but how would you say your personal experience prepared you for this role?
I'm one of those people that just kind of life just leads you along the way, and you don't realize that you're doing it, but everything that I've done has kind of prepared me for the next step. And so, becoming a physician and learning the basics of individual medicine, taking care of people one-on-one, to learning about healthcare systems and learning leadership at the same time when I was doing that, and strategy and things like that. And so you don't realize what you're doing, but you just keep moving along and filling each of the skill sets that you need. And so coming to Cobb and Douglas, it really requires a lot more just kind of executive skills, as well as being able to incorporate all of these different aspects of medicine and public health and emergency preparedness and things like that. And so you don't realize that you were doing it, but you kind of prepare yourself, and then so that skill set has led me to this next step.
Okay, great. What are your goals for the health district in the months and years ahead?
Well, it has really been amazing to me how much Cobb and Douglas does, and I think that's just very intriguing, and I know you all touch upon that. And it isn't just about people's health care on the micro level. We do offer some one-on-one care and immunizations, but we do a lot of other really neat things, and so I'm learning about all of these things that I really didn't have as much experience in. So I know a lot of your viewers have heard about environmental health and all of the restaurant inspections and the investigation. So all of these outbreaks, foodborne outbreaks and facility outbreaks and any sort of infectious disease outbreaks, down to possibly rabid foxes. We're involved with all of that, and I think that's just so fascinating. And so I'm learning a lot about that, and now as hurricane season approaches, a lot of the viewers in our community maybe doesn't know that we're very deeply involved with that as well. So if a shelter needs to go up, Cobb & Douglas is right there to assist in that. And so there are so many layers of what we do. So what I'm doing right now is learning as much as I possibly can, and then slowly now things are just starting to come together where we can see where our greatest impact can be. And so it's lifelong learning.
Right. What health challenges would you say you're eager to tackle?
Well, eager is a word that we've talked about before, which is kind of funny because it's, I'm a little sad that we need to deal with some of the challenges that we have to deal with, but the opioid crisis is one that directly affects us as well. And your viewers may or may not know that Cobb County is one of the top 2 counties for opioid-related deaths in the state of Georgia. And so this is a problem that touches all across our society. And so we would like to get involved with some of that, and we'll come back at some other time and teach a little bit about prevention and education of your controlled substance medications. Other things that we don't want to think about, but we're having some problems with sexually transmitted diseases across the country, and viewers may have seen the CDC report just a couple of weeks ago about how this is becoming a very serious issue that keeps just climbing and climbing. And once again, that touches our county. We are not immune to any of this, and so these are things that we really need to go back and you can treat on a individual level, but it really is taking that step back and seeing what has led to these crises and how do we put a stop to it on that level versus trying to do it on an individual level.
Right. All right, let's talk about our residents for a minute. How do they benefit from having 6 health centers located throughout the district?
So we're really fortunate. Cobb and Douglas counties, we cover 2 counties and about 900,000 residents. And so we're very fortunate. We have 5 centers in Cobb County and we have 1 in Douglas County. So this provides our citizens to have a lot of care that's spread out. Cobb County is not a county that is just centrally located, so we are a very spread out and diverse county. What I love about this is that we offer different services at each of these centers, and so some may require our women and infant children services. Some may require having, HIV prevention and treatment services, which we offer at our main campus. So there's a diverse range of things that we can offer. There's a lot of family planning and STD services as well. So just if people don't know, if you don't know where to go for that kind of stuff, if you have questions, we're there for those things as well. And those are almost all of our centers. So it's nice that you don't have to drive. It can be over an hour and a half sometimes, hour and 15 minutes to try to get from one side of our county to the other. So having these services located throughout provides different points of contact that people can come in and take care of what they need to take care of and not delay it and make a further issue.
Thinking about the last few months, what has been the most surprising thing that you have learned since taking on this role?
I think, like what I mentioned before, I didn't realize how much we actually did, and that's been the most surprising, but also really one of the most fun things to realize. I get to do a lot of really neat things. I got to go behind the scenes at the Braves Stadium and see how their emergency preparedness is done. I'm going to Lockheed Martin too because they're one of our major partners. The same thing with emergency preparedness, but also, I've gone on restaurant inspections and seen how we deal with mosquito control. And as well as worked in our HIV clinic, and so it's just a huge diverse range of things and just really neat. And as a physician, it's really great to be able to get into another arena of healthcare, and so I didn't know we did all of these things, but I'm really excited about all of them.
Great. What would you say is your overall vision for Cobb & Douglas Public Health?
One of my visions is that Cobb & Douglas has been a very successful health department, and so we were the first accredited health department in the state of Georgia, and we continue to be on the forefront. And for me, one of the most important things is to maintain that and make sure that we are always, kind of leading the pack in what we do, and that doing that means we take care of our community in a way that is not just kind of old and recycled ways. And we're the ones that think of new ways to do things, and I want us to continue to do that and to be able to just be very innovative, but also continue to listen to the needs of our community and take care of, if there's something new that comes up, that we're there to help out and be involved.
Great. Is there anything else you would like our residents to know about you?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I really enjoy what I do, and I love being at Cobb and Douglas, and I encourage everybody to learn as much as you can about it, and we hope that we can just continue working with our community to foster public health.
Great. Well, Dr. Memark, thanks again for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I have something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Having trouble finding Connor's middle school? Would you like directions?
No, why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with him over homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No, I need help. He's very smart, but his mind wanders. He's disorganized.
I think I understand.
Oh, good.
French fries. Finding best potatoes.
No!
Russet. Fingerling. Congo.
Why don't you understand me?
Sorry, I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
Welcome back to Spotlight on Public Health. My next guest is Jasmine McLeod, Planning and Policy Specialist with the Chronic Disease Program at Cobb and Douglas Public Health. Jasmine, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Jasmine, the first question I would like to ask you is, what is asthma?
Asthma is a very common chronic disease. It's characterized as the narrowing of the airways. There are some substances that help expedite that process as well, known as triggers. Unfortunately, asthma is a long-term disease, meaning that it can't be cured and you'll have it for life. You don't necessarily outgrow it. However, it is very treatable and can be managed with proper care.
All right, and so what are some examples of asthma triggers?
Some common asthma triggers that can be found inside of the home or a child care center or a school include things like mold, dust, pet dander. Some items that you may find outside of the home and more in the environmental space is poor air quality, exhaust fumes, secondhand smoke, which can be found inside or outside of the home as well. Being mindful of those triggers can help with asthma management.
Okay, and can you explain what the symptoms are if you are having an asthma flare or attack?
Absolutely. So common symptoms are coughing, which can be very persistent and increase during the nighttime, wheezing, which is more of like a whistling sound that you may hear in the chest, shortness of breath, and hearing that pressure in the chest as well. You need to be very mindful of those symptoms as they can very easily expedite into a greater asthma emergency in which it can be very difficult to breathe.
Okay, and what exactly is going on inside the lungs during a flare-up or an attack?
So I like to think of the lungs as almost like a straw. The bigger the straw, the more liquid you can get out of it. Same thing with the airways. The larger the airways are, the more air you can get through them. So when the body comes in contact with certain triggers, those airways begin to narrow. One of the first things that happens is muscle constriction, known as bronchoconstriction. So those muscles around the airway begin to squeeze, making the airways become a little bit smaller. After that, there's inflammation, which also causes the airways to narrow a little bit further. There's also an increase in mucus production. So the airways become more narrow and smaller, which makes air harder to get in and out of the body. So those are some of the things that you'll see inside of the body, but outside you'll see those symptoms that I just mentioned.
Sure, sure. What should someone do once they've been diagnosed with asthma?
One of the things you should do is be a little bit mindful about what your triggers are, learn about what those may be. Asthma triggers are different for everyone. One may be mold or pollen, and another may be more of pet dander or common allergens. So knowing those and how you can create an asthma-friendly environment for yourself or your school is definitely one of the top things you want to do. Additionally, you'll want to work with your physician to create an asthma management plan. Those two steps can make asthma more of a livable disease.
Okay, and you just mentioned the asthma action plan. Can you give us some more details about what that is and why someone with asthma would need that?
So an asthma action plan is your treatment plan that's made alongside a healthcare professional. It lets you know which medicines you should take, when to take them, and how to decelerate a growing asthma symptom emergency. You definitely want to be mindful of your asthma action plan and get it updated annually.
Okay, and then if a child has asthma, who should be given a copy at their school or daycare? Is there someone specific that a parent needs to look for?
Definitely having one on file with everyone that is taking care of your child. Definitely making sure the nurse has one. If they're involved in any after-school program, making sure that they're mindful of it as well. Asthma management requires a team effort. The parent needs to be involved, the student, as well as school staff. So everyone having that proper communication in the child's asthma action plan as well as common triggers can help with the child feeling well and being able to perform better in school.
Okay, and I often see people with inhalers. What determines if someone needs an inhaler?
That is a great question. An inhaler is actually a device as opposed to medication itself, and we have some examples here. Now, there are two different types of asthma medication. Okay. You have a quick relief medication, which is used in case of emergencies. That works in a few minutes. Everyone with asthma should definitely have a quick relief medication on file. A common known one is albuterol. Then you also have controller medications, which can also be used in an inhaler as well, or a nebulizer, as I have here on the table. A controller medication is taken to ensure that your asthma is under control, like the name states. You would take that medicine as prescribed daily, even if you're feeling well or even if you're not feeling well. The common controller medications works on more of the chronic aspects of asthma, which is that inflammation and that mucus. So over time, you want to ensure that that's leveled and at bay.
Yeah, I've seen children with these like on the playgrounds and stuff, so they must carry those with them.
Absolutely.
All right, is asthma something that is genetic, environmental, or could it be both?
There is data to prove or that shows that it could be both. Genetic or environmental. Definitely having a parent history or family history of asthma, you want to keep an eye out for that. It's actually very difficult to diagnose in smaller children that are under the age of 4, but those are the groups that are more likely hospitalized for asthma. So definitely being mindful of the symptoms and what to look for can help avoid and prevent asthma emergencies.
Okay, and then my last question, is it safe to exercise if you have asthma?
Absolutely. Regular physical activity is fantastic for overall health, and it also improves lung function. I would definitely recommend working with your doctor or physician before starting any exercise routine, especially if you have asthma. There's a form of asthma known as exercise-induced asthma, so you definitely want to keep your doctor in the loop of a treatment plan. But asthma is a very livable disease. Being mindful of your triggers and sticking to your asthma action plan can definitely help you live a long life.
Great. All right, and Jasmine, is there anything else you want to tell our audience about asthma?
Absolutely. So the health department is currently working with an asthma-friendly schools program as well as an asthma-friendly child care center program. And with this program, we help foster asthma-friendly environments. So I would definitely recommend they check out our website to learn more about the trainings and the offers or the resources that we provide.
Okay, great. Well, Jasmine, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about asthma. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
For more details about what we talked about today, asthma, and learning more about Dr. Memark, visit our website at www.cobbanddouglaspublichealth.org. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for joining us today.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
I love being out on the water, whether it's, open ocean racing or it's flat water. It's a huge amount of enjoyment for me. I like the competitive elements behind it, but also at the same time, it really allows me to reflect on some of the important things of life. It's amazing how, despite all I've been through, my life will always be defined by one moment, one event. Sure, competing in the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta was a defining moment for me. Carrying the American flag and leading my teammates in Sydney to compete again in 2000 was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And having the opportunity to speak, to teach, and compete since then has been a huge privilege in my life. But all of these experiences lead us back to the fateful day, the day I nearly lost my life in a construction accident. On November 19th, 1986, it was a chilly November morning and a typical workday for me. I was instructed to operate the jackhammer, and I was using this jackhammer for about 15 minutes, and all of a sudden, boom, right there, I ended up hitting 3 unmarked buried high voltage cables. There was such a large amount of electricity that was going through these cables, it actually blasted me out of the hole. I ended up sliding back down into the ditch, and there was the energized jackhammer vertically embedded into the power cables, and my knees essentially got sucked back into the energized jackhammer, and that's when I received my second round of electrical shock. The electricity was just shooting throughout my body, and it was finding all these different weak points, the back of my head, my shoulder blades, and those were some of the exit wounds, along with I had 2 toes that were blown off on my right leg. But most of the damage was to the knee area where it came in contact with the jackhammer for the second time, and I had about 1/3 of the knee compartment that was blown away on both of my knees. I was very fortunate because the firefighters were very close by. My heart had stopped because of the large amount of electricity, and they revived me, and then they ended up transporting me to the hospital. And that's where my mother came, and she can actually see the smoke, which was smoldering from my knee area, and that's when my family knew that I was in a lot of trouble, let alone trying to survive. What can I say about an accident like that? It changed my life. Nobody thought I'd be able to walk again. It took nearly 15 surgeries to rebuild my legs and over 3 years before I was able to take a single step without crutches. It's amazing that by today's standards, a simple call, a bit of paint or colored flags would have made a difference. It would have made the difference between me leaving that site on November 19th, 1986 in an ambulance or on my own 2 feet.
Over the past decades, our underground infrastructure has become increasingly complex and congested. As a result, it becomes a serious issue of safety every time we dig. From simple projects like planting a tree or installing a fence, to extensive excavation that involves entire sidewalks, city streets, or agriculture lands. It is important for anyone, for everyone, to call 811 before they dig. 811 is our national one-call number, connecting excavators with their local communications center wherever they are located. The communications center's job is to notify all facility operators with lines in the vicinity of your intended dig site so that they may respond and mark their lines. Depending on state law, the free call to 811 should be made at least 2 or 3 business days before digging is set to begin, to provide enough time for the area to be marked. Neglecting this important step and choosing to dig without having underground utilities marked is choosing to put your crew and the public at risk.
How are you doing this afternoon?
Good. About yourself?
Yeah, thanks for coming out. So, what are we looking at here? Looks like we have a lot of high-tech and low-tech equipment here to be able to mark some of these lines.
Absolutely. We use paint and flags to mark where the lines are at. We use this utility locator to help us identify where the line's at under the ground.
So when somebody calls 811, who calls you to come out to mark?
Well, when you call 811, the facility owner gets notified of where you're digging, and they call us and tell us to go out and mark.
So these flags actually carry a lot of authority and a lot of power. They essentially mark where the underground lines are, and they can ultimately save lives.
Definitely, definitely.
Anyone planning to dig must wait the required amount of time to allow all underground utilities to be marked. If markings are disturbed, vandalized, or otherwise worn away in the time between marking and the completion of your project, the Communications Center should again be notified so that your site may be remarked accurately. There are many opportunities during an excavation where safety precautions can and should be taken, because most accidents can be avoided.
As a first responder, our primary consideration is always scene safety, and because we want to make sure that we are protecting the victim, and we also want to make sure that we're protecting the public. We can't stress enough the importance of dialing 811 before digging. It's the law.
Every excavator has the ability to lead by example, to practice safe digging habits, and remain dedicated to the goal of zero accidents on your dig site.
Hi, Cliff.
Hi, Megan. How you doing?
I'm good. Looks like you've got a project here.
We do. So what does an excavator need to know in the event that they do damage to a utility?
First thing you need to think is communication. And if should it be a gas line, your first step needs to be to dial 911. And after the authorities have secured the scene, call 811. And for other non-emergency damages, even little things like scrapes and dents and scratches can cause big issues down the road. So always call 811 and the facility owner.
So what is the best tip for an excavator if they're going to go ahead and excavate on a site?
Keep in mind those fundamental steps. Call 811 before you dig. Give that locate technician the time to come out and mark underground lines. Then respect the flags and the marks on the ground. And when you do need to dig, if you need to come close to where those marks are within the tolerance zone, don't use mechanized equipment. Use hand tools. You've got to dig safely out there.
Safety, that's the most important thing. And you know, it's not just the employee out on the job site, it's the loved ones at home. That's where it's affected mostly. 25 years ago, when I was involved in my accident, you could see the power of the utility as it blew through my boot. So important to be able to go to work and come home in the same condition.
Couldn't agree more. Safety needs to be our top priority.
A handful of simple steps can help make your excavation site accident-free, protecting the public and your excavation crew from injuries and worse. Calling 811 or submitting an online locate request through your Communications Center's website is the first step. Waiting to have your site located and making sure the marks are intact and accurate before you dig comes next. And finally, digging carefully with respect for the marks and the underground utilities is critical. It doesn't matter what equipment you are digging with, be it a backhoe, horizontal directional drill, jackhammer, or even simply a hand shovel. Care must be taken, especially within the tolerance zone, because accidents can happen to anyone.
We're never prepared for a traumatic experience. And I learned that, you know what? I can only be the best person that I can be, so I'm gonna have to put 100% energy into my rehab process. So each and every step was very difficult, but I had to learn and I had to believe. I didn't even know if I was ever going to be able to walk again, and going to being able to have this honor of representing my country 2 times in the Olympic Games and carrying that flag. You know, how does that correlate between the two? It all goes down to belief. You got to believe in yourself. It's that hard work. It's that determination. It's being able to go out there and build on your foundation. We've got to be able to set those goals, and going out there and being that best person that you can be, that's how you're going to achieve your goal. And you got to believe in it. You got to have faith.
An accident-free dig site is our goal. Dedication to the goal of safe digging is a shared responsibility between the excavator, the locator, the facility operators, and the communication centers that connect them.
Worksite incidents are a traumatic experience, not only for the individual or the victim per se, but also for the co-workers and the family. Having a new family member in my life, a beautiful daughter, it really hits home hard. It's just so important to be able to come home in the same condition that you came to work. We never know what we're going to face tomorrow in our lives. Perfect practice makes perfect. It applies like that in sport. You always have to go out there and work on your fundamentals. The same applies when you're out on the work site. Practicing safety, you have to do that every day.
You are choosing to be a hero every time you take the steps to have your dig site accurately marked, keeping your crew and the public safe. Because safe digging is often as simple as knowing what's below. Be a hero. Respect the flags. Brought to you by Georgia 811.